Are big tech ruin farming by Wendover production?
If you were in Las Vegas in January 2023, sitting in the audience of the opening keynote of CES, perhaps the most influential tech conference in the world, you likely had one question on your mind.
Why is John Deere here?
After all, they're the tractor company, right? They make machines that push and pull and move and dig. That's their thing, right? Well, not according to their CEO, John May.
We've quickly become one of the world's leading robotics and AI companies.
I knew it. I was about to say fucking AI. I knew it. Okay, like, I should have seen it coming.
Our solutions leverage technology like computer vision, advanced sensing and compute, machine learning, and data analytics.
There's one key word there: solutions. That's a word that gets thrown around a lot by companies like Apple.
Logic Pro provides a great solution.
A sophisticated lens solution.
This solution helps to...
I freaking like despise this kind of like shitty like corporate jargon to try to say you something.
Microsoft.
We
I despise
provide
it.
an end-to-end tooling solution.
The deceptively simple solution.
The best end-to-end solution.
Google.
Bespoke AI solutions.
Open sourcing solutions.
A great solution.
This linguistic mimicry, their mere attendance at an event like CES, it's all peculiar for a tractor company. Unless, does John Deere think it's a tech company? Well, yes, they do.
I mean,
at least according to themselves in this LinkedIn post.
I mean, maybe I'm missing the point, but like mechanics is technology. I don't know. So is it? It is.
Sharing an article entitled "John Deere, We're a Technology Company." And that assertion appears increasingly less absurd. While the company lays off hundreds in its manufacturing plants, it's simultaneously staffing up its tech divisions. Of 15 current US job listings, 12 are in software, data, or robotics, just 3 in manufacturing. The company has been going through a metamorphosis from one that makes machines to one that makes solutions. Apple, for instance, does not merely make computers or phones or tablets. They make integrated technology solutions, blending software, hardware, and services into an ecosystem that envelops one's digital experience. Correspondingly, John Deere no longer merely makes tractors or combines or loaders, but rather...
Like fucking Apple trying to sell you like an overpriced phone with fucking limited features and they call it a solution.
Integrated production solutions, blending software, hardware, and services into an ecosystem that envelops a farmer's day-to-day experience. At the extremes, the company appears entirely disconnected from its original form as a small Illinois storefront selling shovels and pitchforks. Never could John Deere himself have imagined that his company would eventually go on to operate, for instance, a satellite network. But waxing nostalgic about humble beginnings would mask what the company now truly is. It's not an endearing family business, it's not a scrappy underdog, it's a market domineering
like so many companies that get big,
It has
right?
the business of agriculture, especially in America, in a stranglehold. And so might Apple with consumer electronics, but farming is not something you pick up or put on. It's not one's digital experience, it's one's entire experience. It's your job, it's where you live, it's what your family does, it's what your neighbors do, it's what your descendants do. It is an all-encompassing way of life whose future is now being dictated by one tractor company that's decided it's big tech. But John Deere's power, their influence, their ability to change the course of history has been centuries in the making. It started with this, the self-scouring steel plow. Plows had existed in some form for millennia, so many millennia in fact that we can't even say how old they are, but by the 1800s they had been refined and refined into this, a single-piece cast iron plow. These could be pulled by an animal and would efficiently loosen the soil to bring nutrients to the surface before...
Which I've seen in action, like I used to live in a small village in the south of France, and when I was young, at some point for no reason I guess, my dad, you know, decided to buy like a little plot of land from some guy to basically have a farm, and we basically did it like this. I think there was a bunch of small field for people of the village around, and there was one guy with like I think it was the north, yeah, and this kind of like, you know, old thing, and I do remember like the years being like rummaged like that. So I guess technically I could say I did a little bit of farming, yeah, not really in a sense. I mean, I think we had like watermelon and stuff like that, but we only did it for a year until my dad was bored of it, I guess. Yeah, that's my
planting a
story.
fresh crop.
That's
And
my
these
story.
worked great for the time.
Part of the complaints I've heard about the current farming protests in the UK is the expensive machinery would count toward the threshold to needing to pay inheritance tax. Oh yeah, I think I saw something like that, yeah. There's also in the UK, but I think that's a separate thing. I think the stuff in Spain, France, UK, and then America is pretty different, but I guess it's all about farming, yeah. I think in the UK it's something like that, yeah. It's like people want to keep their wealth, basically. I think that's what it is.
Except for here, the
I haven't really
American
read in
Midwest.
depth.
The soil of Illinois and its neighbors was thick, moist, and rooty in a fashion that would lead it to clump on the plow, forcing farmers to stop every once in a while to clean it off. But John Deere had an idea. He would manufacture the same plow, but of polished steel. This cut straight through the Midwestern ground with far greater ease, and the soil would shed right off rather than clump. While he was not the first to invent this concept, he was the first to start manufacturing a steel plow en masse, and his production steadily grew into the hundreds per month, and later, thousands. This innovation played an instrumental part in spreading agriculture across the region and transformed John Deere from a mere shop into a
also
growing
powerful.
manufacturer. By the turn of the century, after the company had passed through the generations of the family, Deere had become a leading agricultural implements manufacturer, but the industry landscape was changing beneath them. Like the plow, tractors, as a concept, had long existed. Through the 19th century, it was typically animals like horse or oxen that pulled plows and other implements, yet around the world, across industries, animal power was being replaced by steam power. Whereas horse-drawn stagecoaches dominated the past, steam trains were now the dominant form of long-distance transport, so the logic carried that steam-powered tractors could replace animal power on farms. And they certainly could. The technology existed, but steam-powered tractors never became ubiquitous due to their high upfront and operating cost. But with the turn of the century came gas-powered
Wow, that's the
tractors.
design.
Cheaper to buy, cheaper to operate. Popularity exploded, and while Deere was originally reluctant to stray beyond their agricultural implement core, they eventually realized that they had no choice if they wanted to stay relevant. They tried to design their own, and it was plenty capable, but it was just not competitive. At about twice the price of that of equivalent machines, their tractor never had any shot of commercial success, and then its designer died from pneumonia following a week of testing in the wet and cold, so John Deere rather elected to just simply buy their top competitor. With that, the Waterloo Gasoline Engine Company was folded into John Deere, and over the following years, their tractor, the Waterloo Boy, enjoyed wild success. Once
a
again,
wild
like with the
design.
self-scouring steel plow, Deere didn't invent the technology, but they popularized it.
But frankly, like, I think old tractors, like, you'd still find some in some places. Again, where I used to live, and again, it was quite the countryside. There was this absolutely massive hangar in the forest, like very hidden, and you know, sometimes we sneaked into it, and there was like old cars and very very old tractors, kind of like the one we saw, where, like, you know, compared to modern tractor design, like, yeah, it was like it was rusted, it was very like bare bone, very open and stuff like that. It was really cool though to go into that hangar and see stuff like that.
Identified the opportunity, scaled up manufacturing, marketed successfully, and helped transform the tractor from a niche, novel technology into the solution for moving power on the farm. Over the decades that followed, the company transformed again from primarily an implement company into a machine company, offering combines and balers and planters and sprayers, essentially anything you needed to turn a field into a farm. Through much of the 1900s, they were always a significant but underdog player in the industry until the 60s and 70s, where their primary competitor, International Harvester, began to falter. And with its collapse in the 80s, John Deere took a firm lead in the industry, becoming
Monopoly.
the go-to ubiquitous source of agricultural equipment in the United States.
It's always the
But
same
then,
bullshit.
another monumental shift in the field. Like the tractor introduced the mechanical era of farming, information technology introduced farming to the digital age. And again, John Deere had to adjust on the fly. This started on June 23, 1995, when Rockwell International Corporation, traditionally a US defense manufacturer, unveiled its proprietary vision system, effectively firing the first shot of the digital farming revolution. It seems so simple now, but Rockwell's vision system was poised to usher in a new age of efficiency by using defense satellites to pinpoint and track a tractor from above, which in turn would allow a farmer to better monitor their field's yield, or when it came time to plant, better disperse seeds and spray chemicals. precision farming had arrived, and while Rockwell was the first, competitors such as Case Corporation and Agco Corporation were close on the company's heels. So too is Deere, which took it one step further. To the late 90s American farmer, GPS in precision agriculture was a handy tool, but still a finicky, expensive, and difficult to use luxury. It helped,
I was gonna say I'm surprised that would even be a thing in the 90s.
but it wasn't required. At least, not until Deere made it a practical necessity. As they did when developing their tractor.
Belarusian watching this tractor video be like, your weakness is pathetic. Yeah, I'm guessing. I mean, frankly, like, I'm sure you can still do great farming without, like, super advanced GPS tractor and all that, right? So I'm sure in a lot of country, like, you know, farmers probably don't always bother with, like, an advanced AI GPS tractor, right? In most countries, they still have old school stuff, I assume.
Deere looked further afield for help. They started at Stanford, where the company collaborated with engineers to develop an autonomous GPS-controlled tractor. While it worked, it didn't work well enough to take to market. The problem was 1990s GPS just wasn't accurate or dependable enough.
That's what I would think,
so,
yeah.
more partnerships. Now Deere, along with Navcom Technology and NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, sought to figure out how to create a more reliable positioning system to support not just yield maps, but autonomous guiding. The former a helpful tool, the latter a potentially revolutionary product. While autonomous guiding may have seemed a lofty ambition, its use case was well grounded. Before the rise of precision farming, farming was, well, remarkably imprecise.
I figured,
Take,
yeah.
for instance, actually planting a field.
Yeah.
Now, laying down seed is actually a rather complicated process with a host of decisions to make and factors to consider, from when to seed to how to establish then plant the field's headlands and borders. But regardless of such considerations, or what crop one is even planting in the first place, each and every farmer, since the dawn of the tractor, has dealt with one major inefficiency: overlap. In farming, overlapping is practically unavoidable. As a tractor operator,
That's actually what I was thinking, like, looking at how farmers do it. I'm thinking, like, yeah, how do you, as a human, make sure you don't just go over the same place again and again?
your threads rows back and forth across their field, it's nearly impossible for there not to be slivers of field, whether it be where rows meet headlands or just between rows themselves, where the farmer doesn't pass over a small section twice. And considering the alternative, what farmers call sparing, this makes sense. If a farmer is to miss a small sliver entirely during drilling, there will, of course, be no crops. If they miss it with pesticides or fertilizer, the section's yield will drop. If they miss it during harvesting, well, that'd be an expensive and embarrassing mistake too. So, farmers overlap, but they try to do so as little as possible. Experience helps with this, as hours in the chair, along with a long established sense of pride in maintaining straight rows, keeps overlap down. So too do generally normal rectangular fields, should a farmer have such a luxury. And then there are tricks. Spray foams to mark areas already hit, guideposts along fences for visual reference, thoroughly laid out tractor paths calibrated to align with the width of the farmer's equipment. But tricks only go so far. One study has put numbers on the overlaps. Across the study's 17 locations and 4 years of planting, the combine driller overlapped at 7.7%, spin disc fertilizer at 9.5%, while the sprayer overlapped at 15.7%, and the cultivator reached 19%. At every step of the process of growing something then, the farmer's overlap is costing.
So I get it, yeah, it's like, it's about optimization, right? And so, with human, like, if you just leave human to it, well, we can think that we want optimization, but, you know, we're not going to be able to perfectly optimize, you know? It's kind of like when I'm, like, you know, like, vacuum cleaning my room, right? I'm sure, like, the place that I don't overlap and the place that I miss is probably a good 20%, you know? Like, my vacuum cleaning technique of my room is probably, yeah, like, missing about 20% of the surface area. Yeah. But if it was like a computer or a robot with perfect calculation, I guess it could do much better for sure.
8% of their seed is being wasted, 10% of their
What I'm saying is that I want a robot to clean my room, please.
Nearly 16% in pesticide and herbicide is doing more harm than good, and almost a fifth of their field is being turned over by the cultivator for no reason. This means more material. It also means more fuel. It means more time in the field and in the chair. It means more hours put on the machines, and therefore more hours in the shop and fewer functional seasons. Such costs really add up, as a bad year will see costs outpace income, while 10-year 10-year averages, in the case of 2010 to 2019, will only net meager 11.8% profit margins. With such touchy and tight finances, unnecessarily wasting 8 to 19% of one's time and money on overlapping is a massive inefficiency, one that Deere was seeking to address at the dawn of a new century.
So what's the answer?
The answer was called Starfire, which, by correcting notoriously inaccurate GPS data with ground location data, offered farmers field mapping accurate to within 3 feet or 1 meter, rather than the 10 to 30 foot or 3 to 10 meter accuracy of traditional GPS. With further work on the product, by 2004, Starfire 2 provided—
I mean, what I want is not a Roomba. I want like a literal humanoid vacuum cleaner, yeah? That, you know, can move stuff around.
Accuracy within 1.5 inches or 4.5 centimeters. Through the collaboration with Stanford, NASA, and Navcom, who they eventually acquired, Starfire positioned the company again on the cutting edge of the precision farming revolution. Not only did their product provide superior accuracy for yield and seed mapping, it was accurate enough to address the fundamental inefficiency of overlapping. Simply equip a machine with a Starfire receiver and a monitor, then purchase Deere's AutoTrack program, and farmers could now guide by precise lines laid out on a screen and even let the autonomous feature take the wheel. Today, through a combination of 6 uplink sites on 3 continents, 46 reference sites around the globe, and leased bandwidth from Inmarsat satellites, the Shovel and Pitchfork company is able to provide greater accuracy than the public global positioning alternative, optimizing every single thread and turn across a farmer's field. The influence of such guidance can't be understated.
It's interesting when you think about it, because yeah, like on one hand, I'm sure the farmers are happy with this, because yeah, now, you know, there's less mistake, and so overall, you know, more efficiency, more profit. But then, yeah, it's also accepting that, like, you know, like machine and technology is already starting to replace you, right? So like it's already opening the door for that. Even though this makes sense at this point, the logical next step is literally that you don't even need a human driver eventually. Yeah. Which obviously I'm sure some of them could see coming. But at the same time, you know, you can't just say no to this. Like, this is too useful. Roomba. Small dino good at cleaning your room. Regret your decision not to buy Roomba instead.
Only 10% of farmers used any sort of auto steer and guidance system in 2004, but as of 2019, those numbers stood in the mid 50 to 60% range. And on bigger 1,000-acre farms where the economies of scale blunt the upfront cost and the waste of overlap is only magnified, adoption rates of such systems have reached over 80%. By applying the same playbook they did with the plow and the tractor, embracing and perfecting new technology through upfront R&D investment, while also acquiring sector leaders like Navcom, Deere helped push farming into a new epoch. But that epoch isn't over, and Deere's only dug themselves further into the digital turn.
Of course.
Across the dozen American companies Deere has acquired since 2007, only 4 are traditional hardware manufacturers, the rest broadly.
And I don't know any of these names. I've never seen any of these names.
Are in tech and increasingly in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and automation. In 2017, for just north of $300 million, Deere purchased Blue River Technology, who had recently been testing their new product called See & Spray, what they called the world's first smart sprayer, which, by feeding hundreds of thousands—
I mean, I'm sure it's already possible. I remember seeing a video of like, it was like a tractor machine going over a field, and it had like a laser that would automatically laser off any like bad herbs, basically, which is pretty crazy.
Thousands of plant images through deep learning algorithms, was capable of identifying crops and weeds before then spraying herbicide within a 1/4-inch accuracy. Not long after, Deere's See & Spray Select entered the market. Then, in 2022, See & Spray Ultimate became available for factory installation on 2023 model 410R, 412R, and 612R sprayers. With a camera positioned along every meter of the carbon fiber spray boom, the product would reduce spray volume by 2/3, saving money on herbicides, and, by extending trips between refills, saving time and fuel. The benefits of the next step in precision agriculture also provided an environmental benefit beyond the farmer too, as this product, the company projected, would reduce the airborne drift of chemicals by up to 87% and chemical runoff by up to 93%. In this new era of AI and machine learning precision farming, John Deere was not the first, as a Dyson subsidiary entered the smart spray space earlier. Nor is it alone, as AgZen, a commercial outgrowth of MIT research, is pushing into the space too. Whether John Deere wins out here, as they have so many times in the past with new technological innovations, remains to be seen, but given their history, it feels like a safe bet. Regardless of competition though, this service, capable of plugging right into the broader John Deere ecosystem, should be a boon for the American farmer conscious of cost, yield, and overall environmental impact of their work. Or at least, that's what it would seem.
Anti-technology riots against textile
By standard
machine in the
metrics, farming in the
1800s.
US has gotten better.
Okay, that's the thing, right? Like, that's the thing that everybody is probably kind of mixed about, me included. Like, you know, the idea of like more machine technology, AI taking some jobs, but at the same time, like, when you think about it, you know, yeah, like, it's bad that some people will lose their job, but, you know, some stuff can make a lot of sense, you know, and farming feels like one of them. Like, you know, especially because, like, we're not in the days of, you know, like, people doing, like, their personal farming, so they're really proud of getting, you know, like, their 5 potatoes and their 3 cabbage or something. Like, we're literally talking about, like, you know, the mass farming for, like, you know, for like billions of tons of stuff, right? So it's not like it's you know, it's a direct, like, you know, Mr. Solo Farmer really being proud of what is remade. So in a way, yeah, it's probably gonna lose some job, the tractor driver and stuff like that. But at the same time, if we can really, like, you know, optimize the food production, like, to the max by using AI and maybe robots or something, right? Then maybe, you know, we can even, like, lower the cost of food overall, which seems like a good thing in the grand scheme of things. Or maybe I'm just crazy and that wouldn't happen like that. But in my head, yeah, I don't know. So while some job would be lost, you know, in the farming industry, would it be a net benefit overall for the world if it actually, like, makes everything much more efficient and maybe less expensive and etc., right? I don't know. I don't know enough about the subject, but I'm thinking like that.
Across the sector's digital revolution. We're wasting less, making better informed decisions, and growing more than ever. Just look at average yields for corn, soy, and cotton. But consider the position of the American farmer. In the past, being an all-green farm, that is, running strictly John Deere equipment, was a point of pride. Today, though, it's increasingly feeling like an expensive necessity without alternatives. Newfound hyper-efficiency comes with a cost, or really a whole host of.
I mean, that's what I was thinking. Like, does it actually? Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I mean, you're probably, like, saving money from, like, the improvement with the technology that's making it that you know, cover your whole field and stuff like that. But on the other hand, like, how expensive is it to use this technology? So does it actually, like, is it really worth it in the end? Yeah.
Costs. Say an Illinois soy farmer is sizing up purchasing a See and Spray attachment. Well, first they'll have to have a fairly new sprayer to begin with, which if they don't have, will be in the ballpark of $50,000. Then add on another $25,000 for equipment and install, which can only be done at an authorized dealership. Still, given that soybean pesticides have reached an all-time high this decade, coming in at $77 per acre in 2022, and given that this farmer owns the median-sized farm for the state at 4,500 acres, considering scale, such an upfront investment may well be worth it. Without See and Spray, pesticides would cost $350,000. With the product, assuming it cuts spraying down to a third, a farmer would only need about $117,000 in pesticides. So with upfront costs, savings total about $62,000. But then another cost. See and Spray subscriptions cost $4 per acre, so cut out another $18,000 and the economics become slightly less appealing. And then there's the less tangible costs. Fundamentally, precision agriculture is changing what it means to be a farmer. What was once an occupation defined by individual autonomy, problem solving, and improvisation is now increasingly beholden to monitors, screens, software subscriptions, and the availability of manufacturer authorized technicians. Undoubtedly, this is an issue of nostalgia, but it permeates in costly and frustrating.
Yeah, in Russia, after season ended, you will be inundated with zucchini from all your relatives, friends, acquaintances, etc. Zucchini, huh? It's already a tradition to plant them and then not know what to put them. Yeah, and I guess that's what he was just saying, yeah. Like, it's almost a tradition in a way, the way farming has been. And I guess people just got to accept that we're evolving, so things will be different, yeah. Fair enough. Huh? Like, the only, like, recently for us, we got what is it called in English? Like we got a bunch of like crates of noix. I don't know what it's called in English. Nut, yeah, like really tasty nuts. And basically, yeah, like, you know, it was around where I live now in the top of France. I guess there was like too much harvested, and someone gave us a bunch of crates of it. It's very tasty. So yeah, I guess it happens often. And when I lived in the south, you know, there was a lot of like olive, and same thing. Like it wouldn't be rare to, you know, people to just give you some because either they have like a tree. For example, us, we had a tree in our garden that was there before we moved in. So we just had an olive tree like there, just like that, you know. So you had some olive. It's very nice.
Ways too. Consider the solar storms that push northern lights as far south as the American Midwest.
While it
might have been a once-in-a-lifetime experience for farmers who stayed up late to see it, it caused far more costly problems when the storm knocked out their navigational systems. Just at the moment farmers needed to be out planting corn, their precision navigation systems failed them.
I see.
While solar storms are few and far between, issues with software programs and machinery that's now more complicated than ever are far too common and far.
I agree. I guess that's what it is, right? Like, I guess there's no great middle ground when you think about it, yeah. Like, on one end, if it works, it's going to be much more efficient than without it. But as we know with technology, I mean, anybody who has to troubleshoot their PC bullshit, I can't even imagine having, like, some kind of operating software similar to a PC with so much shit on a fucking tractor, and in the middle of the field, you have to try to, like, Google stuff to fix it. Yeah, I can imagine that would be a pain.
Are too difficult to get figured out for your lifelong farmer. Rather than hauling a tractor back to the barn to fix a hydraulic leak and get back out on the field that same day, when new era hardware fails, there's a good chance a farmer will be out of their depth if it's on the technology side of the machine, which, as the far more finicky side, it likely is. So rather than fixing it and getting back out on the field, a farmer's left waiting for an authorized technician who will be expensive to pay and costly on time, as it's unlikely they'll be available at the drop of a hat. And all that's without considering whether the farmer has the tools and information to make the fix in the first place, which is also a matter of contention. Across the past decade,
the right to repair, yeah. I remember seeing a bit of news about that.
John Deere has found itself in the middle of a battle over the right to repair. For those savvy enough or bold enough to fix their own issues, they often need access to the diagnostic software to begin with, which is something Deere's been slow to hand over. Their stated reason to keep software...
This kind of thing is kind of bullshit. I had a Peugeot 208 as a car a couple years ago, and at one point I had really basically fucked up the well, they were just worn out, the brakes, and my boss at work, he used to be a mechanic, so he proposed to like change it for me if I just bought them. So I bought them online, right? And what it turned out is my car was from 2012, so already with like electronic computer and stuff like that for diagnostic. And so what it turned out is that I could not, well, he like, you know, started like doing stuff, and then he realized he could not do it because, yeah, he needed like a special, like, I guess the brand, like computer thing to be able to like access the diagnostic of the car or something. And then the car would let him like do whatever he needed to do, which I don't really know exactly what it was. So then it was kind of a pain because I'd already bought the brakes online. But then when I went to different, like, when I went to like an official like garage, they basically didn't want to do it because they wanted me to buy from them the brakes. So they didn't want to take the brakes that I had bought myself. So I was kind of fucked until I basically found like a kind of like underground garage, I guess, run by some guy who was able to do it for me with the brakes that I had bought. But yeah, that's kind of bullshit, this kind of system.
Restricted is a matter of liability and responsibility. If they hand over the keys, they figure their machines might get used and altered in ways they shouldn't. But for an increasingly boisterous farming community, this withholding of key information is simply another way to make sure that farmer is also on the hook for costly repair bills that make their way back to Deere, thus providing the company yet another revenue stream. Regardless as to who is really telling the truth, what's undeniable is that the farmer is as financially squeezed as ever, and with the rise of big tech and farming, they are increasingly being moved out of the driver's seat. But Deere is facing their own financial pressure. Competition is rising, so they have to adapt to maintain their relevance. Over the past decade, venture capital money has poured into startups that insist they can disrupt the world of food production. Whereas in 2013, there were 42 funds focused on the agri-food space, today there are almost 300, reaching a peak of $53 billion of investment in 2021. A simple thesis is presented to potential investors. The global share of land dedicated to agriculture is peaking as more and more of the world urbanizes, yet simultaneously, the global population is expected to continue increasing for at least half a century more. Therefore, it is objectively true that we will have to produce more from less, and these startups believe the way to do that is through technological innovation.
Again, they don't use
Different
cow for the
companies
food.
have different solutions to this problem.
Is that true?
Some are focused on
Are you
controlled
memeing?
environment agriculture, growing indoors to eliminate the threats and resource losses from the outdoors. Others are leveraging big data analytics and machine learning to remove the inefficiencies of guesswork, while still others are working to increase outdoor production yields and lower labor costs through various forms of autonomy.
That's a beast of a tractor. Look at this thing.
Increase outdoor production yields and lower labor
That's a beast of a
through
tractor.
various forms of autonomy. Building on early successes in precision agriculture, John Deere has committed to developing a fully autonomous production system for corn and soybean by 2030. That means every step from plowing through planting through harvest without direct human involvement. And that's remarkably believable. Corn and soybean are planted in straight rows with relatively high distance between each plant, meaning there's already the predictability and margin for error that makes it easiest for autonomous systems to succeed. The combination of innovations like precision agriculture, indoor growing, autonomous production, and more will yield amazing benefits for us all. In sum, they create a food production system that is less expensive and less resource intensive. But they come at a cost, a very literal, incredibly significant upfront cost. The economics of paying an exorbitant amount for a fully autonomous wheat production system work out first for the absolute largest farms. Just as with See and Spray, every innovation promises to improve efficiency by a certain small percentage.
A video about MCD meat was actually some kind of pink meat paste instead of actual meat. That's disgusting. What country was it though? I don't know. Can't imagine like most countries would have regulation against that, yeah? Like in Europe, obviously, don't we have a lot of like laws against false advertising like that? In the US, I would believe it. Like in the US, right, they do stuff like that. But I think in Europe, we should be fine. If you go to McDonald's, you should get some meat, yeah. On one hand, it could devast the Great Plains region like oil did to the coal-dependent West Virginia. On the other hand, it makes food quality better and cheaper, helping alleviate starvation. That's what I was thinking, yeah. And sure, people are gonna lose some job, but if in the overall, you know, it does better humanity by making food cheaper, yes, it's worth it. Like, you know, in a perfect world, no one would, like, we would progress in positive way and nothing bad would happen, but for progress, I guess not everything can be good.
So the larger the overall operation, the more valuable that small percent can be, and therefore the more likely the upfront cost is worth it. So innovations can be worth it, but only if you grow a ton of food. This has been true for a while. There have been greater and greater economies of scale in agriculture, which has contributed to a long-term trend of consolidation. Over the past 25 years, the average size of an American farm has grown by 7%, even as total farmland has declined 8%. As small farms face increasing cost pressure by more efficient big ag operations, they either shut down or sell their land to big ag. And as big tech encroaches into farming, innovation is accelerating, which is great by itself, but this leaves the small family farm behind. A layperson's perception of farming as a mom and pop living in a homestead in Kansas, working the fields around, answering to no boss but themselves, is becoming a cinematic fiction. Increasingly, those living in regions dominated by agriculture work not for themselves, but for landowners holding hundreds of thousands
It's a bit sad
of
though,
acres.
like, even I had the experience again, like, in a small village I used to live in, you know, there was like two dudes that had, you know, a lot of fields and did quite a bit of farming, and, you know, for years we would go buy from them, right? Like, you know, you just go to the guy, he had this like dank-ass underground basement with a bunch of crates. It just give you a crate, it just be like, yeah, pick up what you want. You'd fill it with like, you know, different fruits and vegetables. They were all like tasty, great, and it just be, it wouldn't even like, you know, it was just like this guy was like, you know, he looks almost like 80 years old, and it'd just be like, okay, it looks at your crate and is like $10, you know, and obviously like that was like twice as cheap as if you go to the supermarket or something. So I do remember that experience when I was young. Like we would often get that from two guys. And yeah, it's kind of sad that it might not really be quite a thing anymore. But at the same time, again, yeah, like in the grand scheme of things, if everybody can eat cheaper, yes, it's a good thing. A lot of people in Ohio and Pennsylvania that rejects most modern technology. The Amish, yeah. I've seen videos about the Amish. And I mean, like, no one, like, there's no reason for them to stop, right? I mean, like, if they want to reject technology, it's fine, right? Like, same thing with other people. Like, if you want to have your own farm just to, like, sustain yourself, it's fine, right? Like, it's a way of life and I understand the appeal. But just overall, yeah, you know, like, this seems like, for the most part, a good thing. If we can optimize to the max the production of food and make it cheaper overall to buy, that's a good thing.
Often, the owners of this land live time zones away, meaning profits from production are not spent at the local diner or car dealership, but rather distributed to a multitude of investors and left to sit in mutual funds. This contributes to a further gutting of the economy of rural America. One of the rare ways to build a business outside of cities is becoming an increasing impossibility.
Amish farmers
and
market are
rural
popular for organic food. Maybe this may AI art versus artists, where artists will be selling higher margin organic art. I mean, I see the comparison a little bit, but at the same time, like, no matter what for food, right? Like, when you talk about like this, no matter what already right now, right? Before like it's fully replaced by AI, we're talking about like this massive, you know, billions of tons of farm and crops. So you can't say it's like lovely, like everything you're gonna eat from that is lovingly made by someone who really took care and attention for it, right? So yeah. But then yeah, if you talk about a smaller scale, if you go to like a small town and you've got some guy who just in his garden really took the time to grow like some cabbages, for example, yeah, I would believe that, you know, it would probably be more interesting and more tasty than like a mass-produced one. I would believe that. McDonald's fixed up a lot of time, same as other fast food company, but mostly of their accident was with their product for their meal, toy cup and toxic paint, pokeball who can cause strangulation. Fair enough. Fair enough. That's not that big. I mean, fair enough. Like, yeah, that's still better than like beast meat or whatever you said.
Are being extracted for urban gain. This is, in many ways, inevitable. Tech innovation across essentially any industry has primarily benefited larger corporations and incentivized consolidation. Farming, being so far from urban areas and so culturally isolated from Silicon Valley, has long been shielded from these forces. Yet today, John Deere and others have recognized the upside of bringing these two worlds together. But this progress will hurt. The death of the family farm is upon us, and the autonomous tractor sits just beyond the horizon, waiting to unleash its destructive ability to incrementally optimize yields. The reason why John Deere's See & Spray technology is so powerful is that it's able to interpret visual information and make decisions on what a given plant needs in an instant at a huge scale. What makes this possible behind the scenes is a neural network. The software was fed millions of images and taught to interpret them as a human would. Neural networks are fascinating as they're essentially recreating a brain in a digital environment, and they're also some of the most wide-scale instances of machine learning right now, so it's worthwhile to understand how they work. And for that, there's our sponsor, Brilliant.org. Their class on
Fair enough. You know what, I'll pause here. I mean, about 10 brilliant. Thank you. I'll leave it at that. Okay, very interesting video. Yeah. I think my thoughts is really safer food standard also concerned. Just a couple weeks ago, there was a big story on recalled cows due to E. coli that killed a person. Fair enough. No, I mean, you know, sure, like mass production, like, is something that will, you know, kill the individuality of like, you know, making your own farm and really like trying to make your own crop like much more awesome. But at the same time, yeah, like I think the what it really comes down to is that, yeah, if we can make food cheaper in the world, then it's worth it. Even if like it erases a lot of job in agriculture and farming. It's like, as fucked up as it is to say, it's like, you know, like that people will suffer to make the world a better place overall, right? Like one of the biggest problems ever in the history of the world, even to this day, is really, yeah, like not enough food, or the food is too expensive, or something like that, right? Like, you know, the meme of like, you know, fixing world hunger, but, you know, I don't know if it's fixable fully, but this would already be a big help. You know, if everything gets automatized to the point that then you can buy it so cheap, right? I don't know. That'd be great. Yeah. Maybe we'll get to see that in our lifetime. I mean, AI is really coming on, and I'd believe it. I'd believe it. Okay, really good video. That was super interesting. Quite the subject. Quite the subject.